Hey, Coach, can I ask you something? Can I switch gears on you completely? Because there was a fight that was announced that I feel like is right up your alley, and that is the Stylebender, Israel Adesanya, versus the Spider, Anderson Silva. I know, or at least I believe you would like that because of their skill sets and that these guys both like to stand up and they're very diverse and dynamic with their punches and their kicks and their elbows and their knees. Am I right? Did you see that fight and think, wow, I can't wait till that comes?
No.
What? Where? I gave you a great lead in. What do you not like about that fight?
If it was like 8 years ago, maybe.
So you think that Anderson's in over his head here?
I think he's got the size, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not, but it just seems like the Stylebender is a lot thinner and maybe not quite as tall. But I don't know. So let's say they're the exact same size. I think he's at a different gear right now at this portion of his life, and it'll go along with Chuck. When's the last time Anderson's fought? Probably not that recently. So I just see it as no, I don't. But it's an interesting matchup. It's not like one I'll get like really, really worked up for. No.
Okay. Well, a few people have said what you said, and I guess it might lead it. I thought that you would agree with me. I like the fight for a lot of reasons. First off, I can't remember a fight that Anderson was ever in where his opponent, on paper at least, was a better stand-up fighter. The recipe for Anderson has always kind of been, hey, don't deal with the punches and kicks and try to make this grappling heavy. This will be the first opponent that's like, no, I'll play your game. You want to stand in front of each other? Let's do that. For me, there's something special to see. But I can also tell you, having been in there with Fedor or with John Jones or with Anderson Silva, and I always get asked, well, who was the best of those three? They were all different, but I will tell you this, Anderson Silva was the smartest of all of them. He was the guy that was going to come in with a plan. He knew when to put his foot down on the gas, but he also knew how to pace a match so that he always had endurance later. He was just a very smart fighter. So when I look at that, I am compelled by the physicalities of it, but I'm also compelled by the mindset, right? The rule of Vince McMahon in professional wrestling, no matter how big of a star you are, before you leave, before you make your final curtain call, you pass the torch to somebody else. That's a mindset we don't see a lot in fighting because it's not scripted and there's damage and harm involved in that. But I do still feel that Anderson deserves a pat on the back, even if it is the passing of the torch, that he's sticking around and he's doing that. And there's just a part of that for me, even as a nemesis of Anderson, that I like.
No, I like it. I like him. I agree with everything you say, but your question seemed like, am I really excited to watch this fight? No. But am I nothing but respect for Anderson? Yes. Nothing respect for Stylebender? Yes. It just seems like Anderson might be a little too tentative and slow right now at this stage. I don't know his age, but I think he's in his mid-40s, is he?
I want to say he'll be 43 at the time of the fight.
Okay. So that's all right. Well, that's not, I mean, maybe it'll be a little more interesting than I thought. I don't see Anderson like enough to like remember, you know,
Sure.
he's so infrequent. Now, let me tell you a fight I'd like to see in about 4 more fights that Johnny Walker has. Johnny Walker and John Jones.
Okay.
Remember Johnny Walker just fought a couple weeks ago?
Of course.
Yeah.
You surprised me. You surprised me by putting him up there with John Jones, but I know that I would disagree with you. I like that.
I like it. Nobody's seen him fight enough, so he probably needs a few more fights. But his style was like, just everything about him was like, holy shit, who's this guy? You know, and then that one short, and he has something I don't think, you would know a lot better than I do, but I don't think John Jones is like a one-punch knockout guy. You know, do you consider him that?
No.
I mean, anybody can get knocked out, but I mean, he doesn't have that many like one-punch knockouts.
No, that's right. That's right. He chops down at the tree all night long. Yes, he's not that big power shot guy. That's fair.
Right. And then all of a sudden, this guy with one like 2-inch elbow, I mean, he puts this guy to sleep. And it's like, holy shit. And he seemed to have, we didn't get enough of him, but just from what I did see, I'm like, I want to see more of this guy. That guy looks like an interesting character. expressions and his just everything about him. Were you intrigued by that guy, Johnny Walker?
Yes, I was, and I did think he was dynamic. There's a few guys in that division. Anthony Smith is running with that, and there's also a guy named Reyes, one of Dominic Cruz's guys out of Alliance. That I just think that whole division right now is very fun, and there is a changing of the guard.
Yeah, there will be. But yeah, that would be an interesting one.
Johnny Walker versus John Jones. I'm telling you, you're the first one to speak those words. I mean, that's a huge compliment to the young rising career of Johnny Walker right now. He will certainly appreciate that.
He was, he really caught my attention with his. First of all, just the way he was he was dancing into the cage. Very few people have the same kind of calmness that people like you do before a fight. Let me tell you. Most guys mask it with like, they get like Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali is the first thing you met. He was half the fights they had to recheck his blood pressure like 3 times before they let him go out. I mean, he got so excited before a fight. He was so hyper. And guys like you, Chuck, and it seemed like this Johnny Walker, his first fight in the UFC, I think he only had like 12 fights or something. And he was like, the way he was walking into his first UFC fight was very impressive. It was like he'd been there so many times. And then he got into the cage and it was like, holy shit, this guy is like, there's something. Then when he got kicked in the leg the first time and he made that weird face like he was pouting about getting kicked in the leg and he shook his head. And I was like, oh, this guy's too cocky. He's going to get knocked out. Then all of a sudden it was like, oh, no, he's not. So I was pretty impressed with that guy.
Hey, I'll tell you a guy that might be the weirdest of them all when it comes to his approach and before and being in the locker rooms, but Rory McDonald. Rory McDonald genuinely enjoys that cluster of emotions, that panic, that everything. Rory McDonald actually likes it. Matt Lindland was like that. Matt Lindland actually liked that pre-fight, that nervous.
6 fights.
Yeah, he loved it. He had no problem. Whatever the rules, less rules, more time, bigger. None of that mattered. He wanted to do it, and there is something rare about that. But it does create for something very special when it happens.
When I like I said, I worked his corner. I think 6 of his fights or something. Every time he came back to the corner in between rounds, I thought he was done because he was like. It was like the way he would breathe. It was like, oh, all right, settle down. But yeah, you're right. And let me tell you, Steven Siler. You know who Steven Siler is?
Yep, of course.
Steven Siler. All these guys, including Chuck and Steven Siler, has them all beat. I've never seen anyone. It's like he's not even fighting. He was going out to the cage. He's on his phone gambling on an app gambling, and he like stops the caravan. He like stopped it's when he was fighting one of the ATT guys. Might have been Mike Brown, but I forget who. No, it was I think it was Cole Miller. But anyway, he like stops the caravan. We're walking out to the cage, and he like stops, and he's like, "Oh shit, I forgot!" And he's playing the game, a gambling thing app, and he's trying to place a bet before he got into the cage. And it was like, holy shit. And then when he fought that crazy, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was the same weight. He fought for the title, Hispanic guy, really tough guy. I'll remember him later. But anyway, they were playing video games together, the same cell phone, and him and Styler were up against each other playing this game. And it was like the day before the fight, right after the weigh-in. I walked up to him. I go, "Hey, what's up, man? What's your buddy's name?" I didn't even know that's who he was fighting. He goes, "Hey, coach, this is so-and-so. Yeah, we're fighting tomorrow night." I go, "Why the fuck are you guys playing a video game together?" And he's like, "Oh, we love this game." And Siler is like such a cool-headed guy. It's great to see that. I can't imagine. I don't think I've ever seen you before a fight, but I have a feeling you're pretty calm and cool.
Well, I think I've gone through it enough times. Yeah, I imagine that wouldn't have been true early on, but I think for the most part, yes, you could paint me in that. I don't know that I would be playing video games with the opponent. You want to know another one that was like that, but was Tim Kennedy. But that one you halfway understand, right? He'd been in gunfights before, so Walking to the cage for a guy like him or even Brian Stan, it just wasn't that big of a deal, which is hard to imagine. I mean, the most stressful thing that I will likely ever have to do in this world is I've already done is the cage fight. But these guys were in gunfights with grenades and so you really weren't going to rattle Brian or Tim Kennedy, but. Yeah, some of those stories, So Matt Lindland, we talking about him a moment ago, but his mindset. Well, Matt had a fight very early on, and this is before there were sanctioning and commissions and wrapping of the gloves and weights. He's fighting in Mexico, and Matt Lindland was broke. He had no money, and this was $1,500 to win. He had to win or he got nothing. And he fights some guy, and the referee stops it, and right after the fight, the guy complained about the stoppage. So Matt, who's doing this purely for the money and really needs this $1,500, I mean, this is going to keep his lights on for the month, tells the referee, here's how we settle this. Let's just redo the fight. And the ref's like, well, no, you already won. Go get your paycheck. You're done. And Matt's like, yeah, but he wants to do it again. Let's just redo it. Let's just redo the fight. So the cornermen are trying to tell Matt, no, we're done. Our work here is done. And Matt's like, let's just redo the fight. So the referee with no sanction and no commission's like, okay, great, let's just redo the fight. Pushes them back to their corner, redo it. Matt goes out and beats the same guy a second time. But nobody by any standards, particularly when they truly needed that money, would agree to those terms. It was basically Matt's idea. He just wanted to fight. And that is a rare competitor.
No, he was an Olympic silver medalist, for God's sake.
Sure.
Do you remember the time he fought that Hawaiian? And he suplexed him, but he hit his head on the cage and knocked himself out.
Yeah, who was that? Like Vitali? Was that the guy's name? I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah. Nico Vitali, I think. But do you know that we did a pre-fight walk-in of the cage, and Matt Lindland found that spot in the cage, and he told the UFC guys, hey, there's metal right here, man. There's no padding right there. And the guys, oh, thanks. Okay, we'll fix it. Well, they didn't, I guess, and he knocked himself out. So raised hell about it, fought the guy again and knocked him out.
Yes.
Matt Lindland puts his chew in after he brushes his teeth and goes to bed at night.
I've seen him do it. That's not a joke.
I love Matt Lindland, man. And he had the prettiest wife in the UFC.
That's a fact. Shout out to Miss Angie. All right, Coach, I got to tell you, I'm looking at I got to get to the airport. I'm headed out to Thackerville to call a Bellator show. Do you have anything else you want to get off your chest? Since we went in 20 different directions.
I know we did. It was a great time, and I just want to thank you for doing. There's so many of you guys out there, like the Brian Stans and the Kenny Florians and the Woodleys that are doing such a great job spreading the word of martial arts out there. Not many fighters, are just doing it as great as you guys did. There's no other sport. I can't think of a bunch of kickboxers or boxers that were that good at now not only fighting but doing the podcast and doing the announcing and doing the interviews. And it's such a pleasure to watch you guys. Not only were you world champion fighters and you're fighting blood and guts and the toughest sport on the planet, but now you're being articulate and you're able to interview and you're able to spread the word of martial arts and paint fighters in a very, very, very good light. I want to thank you for that.
Well, that's a tremendous compliment. Thank you. And thank you for your contributions. And let's do this again. When we got more time. It was really fun talking to you.
Love it. Thank you, brother. I'll see you.
All right, guys. Coach John Hackleman. I think, Nick, I thought that was pretty good perspective. I mean, that's the guy that's been with Chuck from the beginning. A lot of people don't know that. Chuck had started. He's even got the Kempo karate tattoo, but he was just a real traditional martial artist. He was just showing up. I mean, he was, I would imagine, paying his dues, and his dad's putting him in the car from a very young age and going in and learning his karate, which then, he became a high school wrestler, took that into Division I. A lot of people don't know that about Chuck Liddell. He was a Division I for Cal Poly University wrestler, 197-pounder, 190 at the time. They changed the weight class to 197. And when mixed martial arts came out, boy, it was just a perfect home. He was just so well suited for it. He had that great wrestling background, but he had those hands. And people never saw that in Chuck with his wrestling because he preferred the stand-up. But the reason he was able to stand up, much like a Jose Aldo, was because he secretly was so good at the defensiveness of wrestling. He could force it to be in that realm. And I guess we kind of made this a Chuck Liddell tribute show, but I think that that's warranted. I think it's appropriate for this time. And I think that that's owed to Chuck. And I do worry a little bit, and I predict that I am accurate, that Chuck's having a very hard time right now. It's just a hard time to go through a battle and to lose to a bum like. There's a lot of things. I've been in his shoes. Right? It can be a really tough spot. But I think my shoes were a little bit different in that I was going to be able to do it again. I was going to be able to try again, regardless of how it was going to turn out. It wasn't over. And when it is over, I would just imagine it's very tough. And I don't know that our words or this podcast or anything are really going to help that. But if we can, I think we do owe it to Chuck to do that. And I thought it was very nice insight that Coach Hackelman came on with